Okay, so today's opener is what you're going to have your quiz over after the opener. I would recommend having your blue factor sheet out, your calculator, and using the MA method to factor. So the first thing that you're going to do is find your M. You find your M by taking your first number, or your first coefficient, times your third coefficient, which is 6 times 10, which equals 60. Then you find your A, which is your second coefficient, which is negative 19. Because your M is a positive and your A is a negative, that means that both of your factors are going to be negative. So you find 60 on your factor sheet and you determine which of those can you add together to get negative 19 when both of your factors are negative. It's going to be 4 and 15. These two numbers then become the area for your top right and bottom left rectangle on your area model. The variable g goes with each one. Then you go through and continue filling in the areas for each rectangle. 6g squared goes for my first area, and then positive 10 goes for my last area. Now remember, the negative 4g and negative 15g came from my second term. After you do that, you need to find out what the height is for my top row here. You do that by finding the greatest common factor of 6 and 4. So if you look at 6 and 4 and you do factor trees, you'll be able to find what the greatest common factor is. So looking at these two, they share a 2. So the greatest common factor is going to be a 2 and the variable g, because they also share a g. So the height for my top row is 2g. So now I need to find my width. So I think to myself, 2g times what gets me to 6g squared? 3g. If the width is 3g up above, it's also the width down below as well, so I'm going to bring it on down. Then I think 2g times what gets me to negative 4g? Well, negative 2. So my width is negative 2 at the top. It's also going to be my width at the bottom. So then I come down to my bottom row, and I got to find my missing information, which is the height. So what times 3g will get me to negative 15g? Negative 5. If I plug into negative 5 to my second rectangle and take it times negative 2, I will get positive 10. So the height for my bottom row is negative 5. So my final answer is going to be area 6g squared minus 19g plus 10 equals height times width. So my height is 2g minus 5 in parentheses times my width, which is 3g minus 2 in parentheses, and then box it for my final answer. Okay, flip your opener over. Let's look at the back side. So the back side, ignore this bottom part. So ignore this bottom part down here for right now. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't have to do it. You're going to complete it just after we complete the top part. So the top part and the bottom part are two totally different things. So the top part here, we're doing the same thing. So we need to find our M and we need to find our A. Now, if you remember correctly, when my first term does not have a number with it, you could fast factor it and not fill out the area model. However, because we're doing a quiz, we're going to go ahead and fill out the area model, because your quiz you cannot fast factor. So my M is going to be my first coefficient, which I'm going to plug in a 1, times my third coefficient, which is going to be 27. So 1 times 27 equals 27. My A is my second coefficient, which is 12. So I'm going to find what I can multiply together to get 27, and then add together to get 12. It's going to be 3 and 9. So my 3 becomes my upper right area, and my 9 becomes my bottom left area. The variable that goes with each is A. And then I fill in the rest of my areas. Oop, don't know what happened to my 3 there. Sorry. So my top left area is going to be my first term in my expression, which is a squared. And my bottom right area is going to be the last term in my expression, which is 27. So now that I have each area, I'm going to go through and I'm going to find what my height is. I find what my height is by finding the greatest common factor of this top row here. The greatest common factor of a squared and 3a is going to be 1a, or you can just simply put a. So my height is a, so now I'm ready to find my width. So a times what gets me to a squared? Well, a. So I bring my a up for the width, then I also bring it down for the bottom width. Then I think a times what gets me to 3a? Well, 3. So 3 is the width of my second rectangle. So that's also the width for the bottom one. Then I come down to the bottom and I think, what times a will get me to 9a? Well, 9 will. Will 9 times 3 get me to 27? Yes, it will. So 9 is the height of my bottom row. And then I write in my final answer. So you can either write in 1a, or you can just write in a plus 9 times, again, you can write in 1a, or you can just simply write in a plus 3 and box it. Now this bottom part, all you're doing here is looking at your factor sheet. Still this for me for a second. Is looking at your factor sheet and determining what you can multiply together to get your m, and using the same factors what you can add together to get your a. So you should also have the little cheat codes on your blue factor sheet saying if m is negative and a is negative, that means that your larger factor of the number 60 will be negative. So you need to look at 60 on your factor sheet, and you need to determine which of those can you add together with the larger number, or the larger factor being negative, to get negative 7. And it's going to be 5 and negative 12. If I take 5 plus negative 12, I'm going to get negative 7. That's all you have to do there. So the next one, if my m is negative and my a is positive, I'm going to look at my m, 60, on my factor pair sheet. And because my m is negative and my a is positive, that means my smaller number is going to be negative. So my smaller number will be negative. So which of those factors under 60 can you combine to get a positive 4? And it's going to be negative 6 plus 10. And that will get you a positive 4. Okay? Now, you look at your next m equals 8, and a equals negative 9. So because your m is a positive and your a is a negative, that means both of your factors will be negative. So because your m is 8, you go and look at 8. Which of the factors of 8 can you add together to get negative 9? Well, it's going to be negative 1 plus negative 8. And that'll get you negative 9. Your last factor is going to be 24 is your m. Your a is negative 10. So you're going to find 24 on your factor sheet. Now, because your m is positive and your a is negative, that means that your larger number on your factor sheet is going to be negative. Actually, ignore me. Sorry. Because your m is a positive and your a is a negative, that means that both of your factors on your factor sheet are going to be a negative, because two negatives when you add together will stay negative, but two negatives when you multiply together will be a positive. So if I'm looking at 24, if I make negative 4 and I add negative 6 to it, I will get negative 10. If I multiply negative 4 times negative 6, I'll get positive 24. Now, for your quiz on solving the equation by factoring and using your area model, I went ahead and gave you the MA for you. The second part of your quiz is going to be similar to the bottom part of the opener today. Be sure to use your factor sheets and your notes.